There is a fear that rules us. People think it is natural. It is not. The reality you are in but ought not be in has made fear a part of your life. But fear is not natural, it was manufactured. Fear is not something you were born with. This fear is something you learned, and learned wisely. For fear keeps you alive, but it also keeps you imprisoned. There is no successful relationship built on fear. Yet, for the most part, fear is the biggest part of most people's lives. Fear, or a perception of risk, is an impediment to the formation of relationships. The more risk we perceive to exist, the less the trust there is, and without trust, we will not even shake hands. As a writer on Substack, people subscribe to my work, as they think I have something to say. There is no risk in taking out a subscription. The subscriber does not have to read what I write, and they can unsubscribe at any time. The risk lays in taking out a paid subscription. The new paid subscriber might find out they wasted the $8 a month it costs to subscribe. But to even consider subscribing means they already know the content they will receive. And as is the case with a free subscriber, the paid subscriber can always unsubscribe. So there is more going on here than a fear of losing the $8 it requires to take out a paid subscription. Many who will not take out a paid subscription already pay large amounts to receive other forms of information and entertainment. Of course, it could be that the subscriber has decided that while the content offered by Logical Minds only is interesting, it is not valuable and not worth the subscription fee. But that hardly makes sense either. We are talking about approximately 20 new articles a month. That amounts to approximately 70 pages of text. But this material is not commentary on current events as so many blogs and content is. This is the result of 60 years of private research and is material that is unique and is not duplicated anywhere else, nor can be, barring outright plagiarism. This is explained to rule out the idea that people do not pay for my work because they see no value in it. The value is there, and so the risk that keeps them from joining as a paid subscriber needs to be found elsewhere. It must also be reiterated, it is not specifically because people like things free and will not pay for what they get, as people pay for a great many low-value items in the area of entertainment and food. Though of course this has some relevance. But the free subscriber only gets the material published specifically for those who are free subscribers. There is material and benefits only available to paid subscribers, so the well-established fact most people will not pay for what they can get free does not apply either. And so we come back to the original question. If people like the free content, what stops them from subscribing to the paid content? When someone subscribes to other channels or other sources of entertainment or information, they can digest what they receive and resume what they were doing. There is no emotional cost to paying for other channels. So even if not subscribed to, the person can give a concrete and reasonable explanation for not subscribing. But it has already been proven to a reasonable degree. There is no reasonable explanation for the lack of paid subscribers to the Logical Minds only channel. So there is a fear at play here. By understanding this very local and specific fear, the fear that pervades the people of the world will come into focus. To understand the reticence of people, one must understand the topic it expounds on. This is important because we need to eliminate the conventional reasons for not subscribing to a podcast or blog. The situation the subscriber is faced with is a one-of-a-kind source of information they find interesting and valuable, but which despite the offers, they do not wish to pay for. To understand why requires we understand the very structure of our mind. Our minds are capable of two phases or states. One is negative, the other is positive. These are self-reinforcing states. The positive mind looks for positive things, and the positive things create a positive mind. The same for those who assume a negative position. They acquire a negative view of reality. However, we need to realize this is not just a bore perception. We are talking about two different realities created by two different states of mind. The negative mind is a negative reality based on competition, but this is also a mind that does not trust. The negative mind perceives risk as the predominant element of reality, but this is not real, it is a perception. However, the perception not being real is created by the mind that seeks to deceive. The person who attempts to trick others and to allay the other person's fears in order to scam them will always perceive the environment as containing risk. The risk is of their making, however. But this, however true it is for an explanation of the fear in this world, does not explain what prohibits people from paying for access to the more curated material on my site. To understand this, one must understand the theory of competing realities. These two realities are states of mind, and they cannot inhabit the same space or intellectual field. One cannot believe in two contradictory positions at the same time. However, if a person is in the Dharma reality, the one governed primarily by fear, and all of their contacts accept there is an element of risk in everything, and their entire monologue is predicated on finding ways to handle risk, then the information can be taken or rejected on merit. Other writers will not encounter the problems I encounter, as they have accepted prima facie the reality of their readers. This is where it gets tricky, because while the one reality is composed of various degrees of risk, there is one risk the reader does not face or encounter with other authors. The reader is not challenged to look at himself or herself. In the dark reality, risk is encapsulated in the other. Writers in the dark reality express their own reticence about a particular class of the other and how to reduce the risks associated with them. But to talk about the light reality is another thing altogether. Not just because we are talking about an alternative reality, but because the perception of those in the light reality is totally at odds with the perception of those in the dark reality. In the dark reality, the risk and threat comes from without. In the light reality, the problem is that we are in the dark reality, and we need to transition to the reality of light. The problem becomes one of our own apathy, our blindness to the light, and our inertia. In the light reality, we are required to look at ourselves as the problem. Those in the dark reality are in it because of the fear they have of their own limitations. The darkness sees everyone as a risk, and so their entire reality is predicated on that. Thus they see themselves in competition with the rest of mankind. They do not trust anyone, but they want others to trust them. They do not like to be seen as a source of risk by others, as it makes life difficult for them. The only when the fearful can allay their fears is to look at these fears and where they originate. Because the risk they see is in the fear they have of others. When life is a competition of all against all, then everyone else will represent a risk. To alter this, we cannot make others see us as a person to trust. When we do not trust them, the only recourse is to change the way we perceive others. We must look at the stake in our own eye. It takes time to trust another. It will take time before others trust us. We need to model trust to those around us. But trust is not an element of this system. We need to act in a trustworthy way, but to truly address the issue of trust, we require a system that is not based on competition. Competition divides. Information brings us together. A priori and apologetic. Apologetic is the study of why we have the hope we have. It is the study of the reasons why we do not have the fear that others live in. The reasons why we have the hope we have is the reasons why we do not live in fear. A priori is a faith in the power of logical coherence, in truth as logical coherence, and in God as the author of logic. The reason we have the hope that we have is the coherence of our position. We believe because it is possible to believe what is true and coherent. What is true makes sense because it coheres with the form of our mind. Our mind is reality in its perfect form, given to us by God to guide us to the truth. Eden is the perfect mind formed by God that we corrupted. This is why we need to take the beam from our eye. We need to repair the damage we did to our mind. Apolacracy is the rule of apologetics, or those who have given us a reason to believe and who are a source of hope. Apolacracy is the political application of apologetic, the science of faith and the practice of thinking logically. Apolacracy is the rule of those who have the greatest mind because they express the purest hope and the least fear. In common terms, we support people who are positive. We want people to be in charge who are of pure faith. The less dependency they have on this world and its elements, the better choice they are. An a priorian is a person governed by the spirit of truth, which when followed lead us to the state or condition called the perfect mind. Truth is the fabric of the mind, and when the mind if purified of all deceit and dishonesty won, if heir to a perfect or perfected mind. A priorian is a subject of the rule of the logos, or the spirit of truth. Those who manifest the perfect mind, who love truth and are honest and above reproach, are the ones suited to rule. These are the rational ones, the ones who think coherently and without contradiction. They have the greatest minds because they are not in conflict with themselves. Their minds are pure. The a priorian mission is to create a pure reality, a reality composed of nothing but the truth, a reality in which a pure mind can form and flourish. A ministry is created to help believers. A priorian ministry is a union of believers. Together, they form to create a perfect reality divorced from the lies of the flesh and the pride of life that leads to dishonest actions and deceitful ploys. A priorian ministries form a counsel for the perfecting of reality. There are two types of counsels that reflect the categories of elders and deacons. These in turn represent the two ways mankind binds together to create a perfect reality. The deacons' councils operate the facilities for the production of goods and services. They represent the workers in the way unions tend to do in a modern factory, but the council is a more sophisticated idea than the trade union ever was. In some ways, these councils are akin to the medieval guilds. The elders' council deal with issues of a general nature and are not specific to a particular occupation. Elders hold counsel over a jurisdiction rather than an occupation. There are 12 occupational sectors and 12 administrative layers. However, power remains at the base and no upper echelon wields any power not specifically provided it by the lower echelons. The councils of deacons or limited councils are divided into 12 different sectors, each representing one of the occupational categories. The Council of Elders or General Council deals with issues that span the occupational sectors and/or a more general nature. Their authority is based on the physical location of the limited councils and cover a political jurisdiction. Everyone works for and are paid by the ministry they belong to. All work is paid for at an agreed-upon set rate equal to a living wage. Nothing is paid for by the member that the member does not purchase and consume as his or her personal property. Thus, there is no risk, and where there is no risk, there is no fear.